My name is Nadia, and I used to think the world owed me everything. I lived in a beautiful 3-story house in Amman with my parents. It had large windows and a garden full of orange trees. Every morning, someone brought breakfast to my bed, cleaned my room, and drove me wherever I wanted to go. Life felt easy and comfortable, like living in a dream. At school, I didn't worry about grades or homework. If I failed a test, my father would speak to the teacher. If I didn't understand something, he paid for a private tutor. I believed I didn't need to work hard, my father would always fix everything. My friends said I lived in a bubble, and I agreed. But I liked my bubble. It was safe, quiet, and full of luxury. I wore expensive clothes, ate at the best restaurants, and traveled to other countries whenever I felt bored. I never checked prices because I never had to. One summer morning, I woke up at 11:30. One friend asked me to lunch, and another invited me to Paris for the weekend. I smiled, no job, no responsibilities, nothing stopping me. I went downstairs and told my father about my weekend plans. He looked tired but didn't say much. Then, he asked, "Do you know how much a plane ticket costs?" I laughed and said no, but he did. His smile was different that day, more serious. That evening, he called me into his office. I walked in, playing with my hair, expecting the usual permission. But instead, he told me I wasn't a child anymore. I smiled and said I knew, but he wasn't smiling back. He told me I was living like nothing would ever change and reminded me that one day he might not be there. That surprised me. I had never imagined life without him taking care of everything. I thought maybe he was just having a bad day, so I left the room. The next morning, I found a note on the kitchen table. "Come outside. We're going somewhere." I found my father by the car. He didn't say much, just drove. We passed through neighborhoods I had never seen, old buildings, small shops, people carrying heavy bags, others selling vegetables by the road. It was a side of the city I never paid attention to. He parked near a market, and we walked through narrow streets filled with the smell of fresh bread. A man was carrying flour bags, sweating but working hard. My father said, "He works all day, every day." We saw an old woman sewing clothes in a small shop. Her hands moved fast, her face tired, but she didn't stop. My father told me she'd been doing that job for years. I didn't say anything, just watched. I had known people like that existed, but I had never really seen them. Then, we went to my father's office. I had only visited a few times, usually to ask for money. He walked me through a busy workspace where people were on phones, typing, and moving quickly. No one noticed me. Then he showed me a desk in the corner. "This will be your desk. You start tomorrow." I thought he was joking, but he was serious. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the man with the flour, the woman sewing, and the workers in the office. I felt something new, maybe fear, maybe curiosity. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. I wore simple clothes and didn't use makeup or perfume. My father handed me a small lunch bag with a sandwich and an apple. When I asked if we could stop at a cafe, he said, "No. Workers bring their own lunch." At the office, a man named Mr. Khalil met me. He didn't smile, just gave me a big stack of papers and told me to check the numbers for mistakes. At first, it seemed easy, but after an hour, my head hurt. My eyes were tired and my hand sore. I wanted to stop, but I didn't. At lunch, I sat alone, eating the simple sandwich. Everyone around me talked about their real-life problems: electricity being cut, saving money for car repairs. No one scrolled on their phones or spoke loudly. They just ate quickly and went back to work. The afternoon was harder, but I finished. At 5 o'clock, I left the office exhausted but proud. I had actually worked. My father was waiting outside, and we drove home in silence. That night, I didn't want to watch TV or text my friends. I showered, ate dinner, and went to bed early. My body was sore, but my mind was full. I used to think I was strong because I had everything I wanted. But now I was learning that real strength came from effort and persistence. The next morning, I woke up early again. My father was in the kitchen with tea. He handed me my lunch and nodded. That small gesture felt meaningful. At the office, Mr. Khalil gave me more papers. "Work faster today," he said. I didn't complain. I worked faster and made fewer mistakes. I started understanding the people around me, how hard they worked, how they endured without complaining. I began to admire them. I even started finishing my work early and helping others. Mr. Khalil gave me more responsibilities. One day, he said, "Better." Just one word, but it felt like a reward. Eventually, my father gave me the key to a small office upstairs. It was mine. It meant I had earned something. I decorated it simply, with a small plant and a family photo. Then I got my first real project, working with 2 other employees on a finance report. At first, they kept their distance, thinking I was just the boss's daughter. But I listened to their ideas, worked hard, and supported them. They started trusting me. We finished the project well, and they even invited me to lunch. My father began treating me as an adult. We discussed work at dinner. My mother said I looked more confident, and I felt it, too. One evening, I walked past that same bakery and bought bread from the man who once carried the flour. He didn't recognize me, but I remembered him. He helped change my life. I learned how to speak in meetings, listen, and solve problems. I made mistakes, had hard days, but I didn't give up. One day, an old friend messaged me to go shopping. I said, "Maybe another time." That simple reply showed how much I had changed. I didn't need more things, I needed more meaning. I helped a new worker who was nervous. When she thanked me with tears in her eyes, I felt a kind of happiness I had never known. It was quiet, real, and deep. At a company dinner, People shook my hand and said I was doing well. My father smiled the whole evening. I felt proud not because of my name, but because of my work. Later, sitting with him, I said, "Thank you." He replied, "You did this, not me." And for the first time, I truly believed him. Over time, I stopped checking the clock and started enjoying my work. I wore simple clothes, packed my own lunch, and felt ready to grow. One morning, my father came into my office, looked around, then asked, "Do you remember the girl who laughed when I asked about plane ticket prices?" I smiled and said, "Yes, I remember her well." He nodded and said, "She's gone now." That moment felt heavy, but warm. It felt like respect. Soon, I was given a bigger responsibility to lead a small team for a client project. I was nervous, but I remembered how others once helped me, so I did the same. I listened, supported, and worked alongside my team. The project was completed on time, and it was excellent. The client was happy. My father was proud. And I was proud not for recognition, but because I had truly earned it. One evening, I stayed late in my office. The building was quiet, and I looked around at the empty desks, thinking about how much I had changed. I used to think strength came from having everything. But now I knew real strength came from doing hard things when no one was watching. From showing up even on the hard days. From helping others grow with you. I also understood my father in a new way. His life was never as easy as it looked. He worked hard, carried pressure, and made decisions that affected many lives. He didn't just give me money, he gave me the chance to become someone better. And I will always be grateful for that. Months passed. I joined meetings, gave opinions, and handled real responsibilities. One day, when my father had to travel, he handed me his schedule and said, "You'll handle these meetings." I did. And I did well. When he returned, I told him it was hard, but I did my best. He nodded and said, "That's all I ever wanted." That evening, we sat on the balcony watching the sunset. My mother brought us tea. My father looked at me and said, "You have changed." I smiled and said, "So have you." We both laughed. It was a quiet moment, but it felt like a new beginning. Sometimes, I still visit the old market. I buy bread from the same man and wave to the sewing woman. They don't know me, but I remember them. They were part of the moment I began to change. Now, I don't wake up late or shop without thinking. I still enjoy nice things, but they're